Ludus, Vulpes.
Welcome to Ludus Vulpes. My name's Kirsty.
And I'm Phil.
You join us as we run through the good, the bad, and the ugly of Coffee Traders. Woo! Produced by Capstone Games.
Have you ever wanted to trade coffee to conglomerates around the world and supply coffee houses direct? Well, this is your opportunity to step into the fair trade world and provide coffee to those desperately in need, like myself.
Not like myself.
No.
I'm more of a tea girl.
Kirsty drinks tea. It's weird. I don't understand it. So, Coffee Traders, a game for 1 to 5 players, I think?
Yeah.
No, 3 to 5 players, but with a 2-player option. So 2 to 5 players by Capstone Games, and it's a good one.
It is. But shh, don't give it all away yet.
Spoiler alert, it's a good one.
It's quite chunky.
It is quite chunky. It's quite big as well.
It's heavy.
It's heavy. It takes up quite a lot of table, quite a lot of table. This game does play 5 players. It plays 5 players really well. It plays 4 players really well. It plays 3 players really well, and it's not bad at 2.
Nope.
So, without any further ado, let's go through a brief explanation of the rules.
Yeah, I'll let you do that.
Thanks. Join us down at the table. Okay, I have got this, and I don't really do this. I don't really show rule books when I'm going through like explanation videos. This is going to be a brief explanation because this is the rule book. There's a lot in there. It's also beautifully well designed with like fake coffee rings, but also notes for you to spaces for you to make notes if you want to. I probably won't, but they're there. But there are at the back. There's kind of like a little brief history of coffee.
How the actual coffee process takes place.
Like fair trade world and where fair trade came from. Talks a bit about the Kopi Luwak stuff as well. I mean, there's just a lot in here.
You're getting lots of bang for your buck.
You are. It's a very well laid out rule book as well.
Yes.
It's a bit impenetrable when you first start reading it, but after you've read it, learnt the game, and then you're referencing it, actually it's pretty good.
Sit down with a cup of coffee and enjoy your break reading it.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so here we have Coffee Traders. This is an example game. This is not actually a game we've just finished playing. We've just set it up as a rough idea of what the game might look like. We've left a few things undone so that we can show you them as we go. So let's do a brief overview of Coffee Traders. Okay, let's start at the beginning. On the main board, which is a shared player board, there are a few things to be aware of. Over here we've got the coffee house trading track. So coffee bars. And in the coffee bars, you're going to send coffee beans over to them, and they are going to serve your coffee to your happy paying customers.
Rome, Vienna, São Paulo, Oslo, London, and Seoul.
So. Even. Over here, you have got the Arabica track. And this is the quality of your different coffees. And that's important as you progress through the game. They give you different bonuses. Harder to progress with that track than it might at first appear.
Yes.
Because the early steps on it are like, oh, boom, boom,
bang,
boom.
Bang,
And then it's
bang.
like the Arabica track, which at first feels really easy to progress on, but actually as the game progresses, it becomes more challenging to move up there. And the big bonuses are right at the top of that track. So that's the shared player board. Oh no, sorry, hang on, we've forgotten the plantations everywhere. Each of these are different countries and different fair trade coffee plantations in those countries. You've got Brazil, Guatemala, Indonesia,
Sumatra.
Ethiopia, Colombia, but also Sumatra, where your little Kopi Luwak cats are going to go, civet cats are going to go to produce Kopi Luwak coffee. We'll talk about that in a bit. So yeah, you've also got a little bit of a turn tracker down here and space for some bonus tiles over here that we've not put out at the moment, although we are showing them on our board, and we'll talk about those later. At the start of the game, each player will have 3 level 1. These are level 1 plantations.
I'll show you in the dark colour so you can see that better.
So you have 3 level 1 put out on the board, and that will be a place that will generate coffee, which is fine. And you also have level 2 and level 3 coffee plantations available.
They get chubbier.
They do get chubbier.
So it's actually easy to follow.
Now, the first thing to recognise is the number on those is not about the in-game strength of the coffee. It's about the area majority towards the end of the game. At the end of the game, the player with the majority in each of these is going to score various points based on that majority. So that's something to be wary of. You do want to have the majority, and the depending on whether it's a 1, 2 or a 3 is going to count 1, 2 or 3 towards the majority. Pretty much each of these additional buildings that you might put on the board are going to count 1 towards your majority, with the hospital, mine's out somewhere.
Yours is there, and mine's here.
The hospital counting as 2 for the majority.
It's a large building.
It's a large building. So those majorities are going to be important towards the end of the game, because that's going to be scoring opportunities for each of these areas. Now, the other thing that they're going to be is they're also going to be places where workers are going to go and produce coffee. And we'll go through a turn sequence in a moment, but the more locations, whether yours or somebody else's, that are in a particular co-op, plantation co-op, is going to produce more coffee in that particular area.
Yeah.
So, that's some basics of the game. We'll go through a turn sequence now, and we'll talk about each element of the turn sequence, which is immaculately documented on the player boards. And you've got
stunning player board here.
Yeah, it's really nice. And really crystal clear after you've got through the first play. So you follow each turn, and there are 3 turns, 3 rounds. You follow each of these sequences. Number 1, the work phase. Number 2 is the worker pool. Number 3 is the traders and craftsmen stage. Contractor stage. Number 4 is the harvest phase. Number 5 is the contracts and coffee bars phase.
Yeah.
So.
And then you refresh the phase.
And then you refresh the phase.
Just here.
Yeah. Which is lovely. So let's follow that through. You have 3 worker cubes. And in the work phase, you get to assign these to one of 4 actions down the side. Action 1 is to put a plantation out. And you take a plantation off your board, paying the cost underneath it. The cost above it, receiving the reward underneath it when you take it off your board, and you place it into a level 1 plantation slot if it's level 1, a level 2 plantation slot if it's level 2, and a level 3 plantation slot if it's level 3. Talk about some of the requirements there as well momentarily. Now, when you're placing that, if you're placing for the very first time in an area that you do not have a plantation, let's say I was coming over here, I would also need to add a worker to that worker pool, because I'm creating a more productive area. These can only be taken sequentially, so from the left to right, right to left even. Yeah, right to left. I'm looking at it upside down.
Left. Right to left there, left to right.
Left to right, that's correct. Oh, wow. More challenging than I thought doing this upside down. So, place and location. And you basically place one of those out there. There's a reward on the bottom, so there might be a donkey or another worker. And there's a cost potentially at the top, so this will cost me 2 of my
hard-earned bucks.
Very, very limited cash.
Also, very good high-quality production cash.
Metal production cash. Cash money. So that's there. That's placing one of those. When you come to the end of a row, if you've got enough money, you can also put one of these warehouses out.
It's a farm.
Farm out. There's 2 of them, one there and one there, because warehouses are over there. So you put one of these farms out if you can afford it. If you can't afford it on emptying that row, it's done. You can't do it other than that. You do it immediately or you don't do it at all. These farms are just another point towards area majority at the end of the game. Yeah. Depending on where you place them, you might get a benefit on the board as well. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So that's action number 1. Action number 2 is distribute workers. So if I want to distribute workers, I look at a cooperative. So I'm going to look over here, because I've got actually 3 things here, and I place workers, 1 worker in each slot. So I go here, here.
Only in the plantation area.
Yeah, here. And I'm also going to be very generously putting workers on Kirsty's as well.
That's friendly of you.
Thank you. It's not that friendly, because I get a benefit. I get to increase my Arabica track for this type of plantation by 1. This is one of the most important actions in the game.
Yes, it is.
At the end of when you hit the sort of harvest phase, if you haven't got, the worker pool, if you haven't got a worker on one of your plantations, you're going to end up with a -3 token, or you're going to pay cash. and it's documented down here. In the first year, it's £1 crown per worker, £2 per worker in the second year, and £3 per worker in the third year.
That's painful.
It's a horrible, horrible bill to pay. Now, that's all down there, nicely documented. No worker, pay the price.
Simple.
You can also alternatively move backwards one on an Arabica track, which is also kind of painful. Although theoretically you could sort of like bounce back a little bit.
There's a certain stage where you can't bounce.
Yeah, there's a certain stage where you can't take a step backwards, which is the donkey here. So after this column here, you can't go back on that particular track, but you've got like 5 tracks to pick from, so you're normally all right. So that's the place workers action, and placing workers means that all of those plantations are going to be harvested in the harvest phase, which we'll come to in a moment. Next action down, 2 cubes it's going to cost you to breed a donkey. When you breed a donkey, you take a donkey from your supply and you place it on a connection on the board. So for example, I could place it here, or I could place one of the 2 donkeys needed here. Now when you're placing these particular plantations, after the first one, okay, I should put one there. After the first one, you must have a donkey to connect.
Yeah.
For the third one, you must have 2 donkeys to connect, and it must follow a path from your first plantation out. Yeah, there you go. That's fine. But when you breed a donkey here, that donkey goes straight on the board. Other rewards that give you donkeys, and they are around, will put it into your company supply to be used when you need to put one of these out.
Yeah, when you're building.
Now, if you've part claimed a level 2 to 3 step, no one else can claim it anyway, so that's now yours. So that could be quite a useful way of claiming a step. And then the final action is place a civet cat into Sumatra from your supply, or take 2 crowns. Take 2 crowns is really good, like can be really, really good.
And so can placing the cat.
and so can placing the cat. So 3 action cubes. Oh, hang on, I've got a bonus. I've got a spare cube here. Why am I not using that one? Well,
you may.
You may. And here, each round, you have a bonus supply of which you can take 2 of 3, and you'll probably take 2 of 3 every round.
Yeah.
You can take another work phase cube and place it here at any point. You can take one of these traders and contractors and place it here. Or you can take the 3 crowns placed here and place it into your company supply. You do 2 of 3 of those, and at the end of each round they will get replenished. Word of warning, the crowns are not replenished from the overall supply, they have to come from money you've brought in that round.
Yep.
So if I've moved these over here, at the end of that round I've got to have 3 to top it back up, to top my sort of loan up.
And if you can't...
For each one I can't pay, I'm going to take a -3 victory point token at the end of the game, which is painful as well. So, there are your 4 actions.
Simple.
Yeah, in the work phase. We then move into the worker pool, where we actually look to see, all of our plantations got a worker on it. If we have any workers in our supply, we can now put them out. So if there's a gap, say here, I could put that one out there. I've also got another worker which I could put on Kirsty, so whenever I put something on somebody else's, I will gain a movement on one of these Arabica tracks. That can be helpful. If you haven't, you're going to pay the money for however many workers you don't have based on the year. After that, we move into the traders and contractors phase, where we are either building buildings or sending our traders out to the coffee houses to claim a reward or to collect coffee from those plantations. Now, you got 4 workers. You start off with 3 workers. Bonus workers can be earned through the game, and there's always your actual bonus worker there. If I were to, every time you play one of these workers as the lead player, you'll pay a cost, depending on what you're doing. And if I was going to go out to the plantation, I'd come to this plantation. Fine. I would pay the appropriate cost, which is going to be 2 crowns. And then the other players get to piggyback, and actually on the board you see a little person carrying another little person, piggyback that move. So Kirsty could now put for free a worker here.
Go on then, I'll do that.
Now on Kirsty's turn, she could do the same into a different area, but once an area has been played into with a trader, you can't really go back there again. No. So we could go here, Kirsty could go there, and I could follow her. She'll pay the initial costs.
And so on.
Yeah. Now, the other thing you can do, these are either traders or contractors, and contractors build buildings. And you can build the next available building in a queue.
Starting from top, going down to bottom, as opposed to across, like in the work phase section.
Yeah. So if I wanted to build this, I would put my worker there, I would pay my 2 crowns, and I would put this out into a region. Now, Kirsty can once again piggyback that action. So let's say I were to put this out, and all you're doing is mashing the symbols. So I see a symbol here, I can put that in there. That pace is taken. Now, Kirsty can follow that action, and if she does follow that action, if the action is on a co-op, she must go to the same co-op.
So, oh, I think I'll do that, and I'll go.
However, if Kirsty wants to follow that action, she will actually pay for this one by giving me one of her coffees. So she might knock this lilac one down, and I might take that lilac one. Her choice, not mine.
Yeah.
So that's the traders and contractors action. The visiting the co-ops is really important because that's going to bring your coffee in. So that's really important that you get some of those out there to enter into the harvest phase. Because that's where we're going next. So you're going to play all of these workers out.
Imagine we'd gone, I don't know, like that one there and that one there.
Oh,
You put 2
followed there as well. Followed there as well.
Okay.
So, and let's assume that some of these are out as well, because why not?
Well, they'll all be out.
Yeah.
We would have made sure they're all out.
Well, typically, yes, we would.
I'm not going to bother with that one.
No, it's fine. Don't bother with that one either.
No, we don't need to. You can have that little D back.
Thanks.
Okay.
Lovely.
So,
Thank you very much. So, now moving on to the harvest phase.
how we do that, Phil?
Well, each of these little dudes works really hard for us, and will harvest in a 4 or 5 player game. They'll harvest 2. In a 3 player game or less, they'll harvest 3. So this one has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 threes are 15.
So 15 pieces of coffee will be harvested.
Nice. Would you like some coffee beans?
Well, what then happens is we start to allocate. So these are trading posts. They will each get allocated a coffee.
Can I get some coffee beans?
These beans are not for the purposes of allocation, but we tend to like to do it this way.
Do that.
I've got a few. So I'm going to put 1 here and 1 here. And then...
The fair trade houses always get them first.
Then this guy at the front of the queue gets 1 plus a bonus 1, and then we just start to cycle.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So purple player would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in lilac.
Yes, there is a capacity.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There is a maximum capacity of beans that can be taken per worker of, I think it's 5. That's our 15 coffee allocated. Now we just put a little check in place. Now, the bonus one sits off to one side, and other than that, each worker, each trader will leave with 5 coffee. So
How about the fair trade ones?
they are sent by the trade house separately as well.
Separate, so that'd be 1.
So that's 5 for this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, one of those is going to come back. So 5 for that person, plus their bonus 1 to 6, plus a bonus 1 from there, 7, and Kirsty will also get a bonus 1 from there. 2, 4, 6 for Kirsty, and 2, 4, 6, 7 for my lilacs.
3, 4, 5, 6. Takes me to 7. That's nice, isn't it?
Takes me to 9, which is lovely.
Ooh.
Now, we'll do that for each of the co-ops around the world. Now, each of those co-ops will produce coffee, and if there's a trader there, that trader will get some or all of that coffee.
Yeah.
In a 3, 4, 5 player game, that becomes quite an interesting divvy up.
Yes, it does.
And also in a 2 player game, you'll have a third like dummy worker out on those spaces anyway.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been quite as brutal as we demonstrated there. But that's, in principle, they are divided up in that way between each of the traders on those locations.
Let's take a moment to look at Guatemala and Brazil. As you can see, neither of them have any traders or contractors. Therefore, the coffee that's being created, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9.
9 in Brazil and 3, 6, 9 in Guatemala. Literally just gets wasted.
Well, these trading houses will pick up 1 each. That'll be it.
But these, because there's no one to trade,
The rest just goes.
it's such a shame. What
Yeah.
a waste. And it's so frustrating when that happens.
It will happen though. It's the
Yes,
nature
it
of the
will.
game. So you're going to collect your coffee beans and you're going to move them up these little tracks here, so they're representative. And that is the end of the harvest phase,
Yeah.
which is great. You now have coffee that you can trade. Worthy of note, there's these little sky hooks at the bottom which are collected as you, if you're the first person into one of these spaces, they'll have an appropriately coloured sky hook. They will also, in the refresh period, generate 1 income of coffee as well. So they can be quite useful as the game progresses. You can also spend them to release some of these warehouses. And warehouses allow you to store more coffee in the refresh period. So, now, we've done the harvest phase. We've got our coffee. We now move into the contracts phase. Now, you can also, at certain points in the game, you can trade coffee in for other coffee. And you've got these little tokens at the top which start on 4 to 1. So 4 coffee beans can translate to 1. As you release the warehouses, you get 3 to 1 and then eventually 2 to 1. And that's by releasing these warehouses. 2 to 1 is really important because honestly, you'll probably have a glut of coffee in one particular type that you'll need to trade in for other coffee types before you enter your contract phase.
So, for example, this contract here requires 7 purple, 4 green, and 3 brown. The an issue, but I've only got 2 green and I've only got 5 purple. I've got 3 wilds, which are from my Sumatra area, which would help with the purple, but I'm still short on the green. Therefore, using my scale of 2 to 1, I can go 1, 2 gives me another green, 1, 2 gives me another green, which means I'm then able to complete this contract.
Nice. You'll probably have a couple of contracts left, maybe 1 or 2 at the end of the game, or you might get rid of them all, it depends. And you start off with 6 contracts that you're able to fulfill, and that will probably dictate where you spend most of your traders during the trade phase, because there'll be certain colours that are probably slightly more dominant on your board. Every time you fulfill a contract, you get paid for it. So an A or a B contract will give you 1 crown, a C or D contract will give you 3, and an E or an F will give you 4 crowns. 4 crowns is big, like really worth going for.
It also gives you the ability to build a hospital, and also you can either do a building of any choice, or you can have a car.
Yeah.
No, we haven't talked about the car. Well, they're trucks, really.
Because they're hard to get is why we've not talked about them. The other thing you get is a benefit at the bottom is also everyone that's complete will get you victory points. 9 for that level, 4 for this, 5 for this, 3 and 3 here. End of the game. The little coffee cup icon is end of the game points, and you'll see those on all kind of buildings. You'll see them over here. You see them over there on the coffee trading board. You see them up here. 6 and 4, maximum 10 for each of these Arabica tracks. And up here with an accumulator on the wildlife and sort of flora and fauna track over there. Now, fulfilling contracts. On your turn, you may fulfill a contract. That seems fair. If you've got if you've got the coffee beans, you can fulfill a contract. The other thing you can do is sell coffee to coffee bars in the contracts phase. If you sell 1 bean to a coffee bar, that is the end of your turn. If you sell 2 beans to 2 coffee bars, you can then you will have another go until you are out of coffee, until you can only complete 1. What typically happens in that contracts phase is you will do any contracts you can, and then with any spare coffee, you'll send it out to the coffee bars.
Use it up, because you're going to lose it if you haven't got a warehouse.
Yeah. And that's when we hit the refresh phase. So the refresh phase has got a few things going for it. We're going to bring our workers back. We're going to bring our traders back. We are going to lower our coffee that's left over to either the level of the latest warehouse. So in this case, I've got 4 warehouses out, so all of my coffees can sort of rest at 4. If this one was here, that means I could store the maximum allowed in that one, or put it here for 5 across the board. And I'm not sure which is best, to be fair. I think there's times when each of them work quite well. Then after you've done that, you will then be able to raise for any of the hook tokens at the bottom by 1 for each of those hook tokens. And you'll then have to pay back any money you've loaned, and then we will reset.
Get all your action keys back.
Get all your action keys back.
then we go
refill the
on
bonuses from what's on your board, and then we go into the second year, and then so on into
so
the
on and so
third
on.
year. Now, at points during the game, you may be able to fulfill some milestones out there, and there are 3 of those to fulfill, progressively more difficult.
Yeah.
And the first person to fulfill them gets more points, second person slightly less points, and the third person slightly less, and the fourth and fifth person get none.
Lovely.
Yeah. At the end of the game, we've already talked about majorities in each of these territories will score you more bonus points. So the first, second, and third players will score more bonus points over there. Majorities in the columns will score you bonus points over there. And you'll score potentially endgame points over here as well. The points are coming from everywhere on the board by the end of the game. And you want to have maximised probably your contracts, locations in the coffee bars, plantations. You'll need to have some of those where you want to have the majority. Overall, at the end of the game, you'll be... we've had pretty close games so far of Coffee Traders as we've played. So there's a lot out there and a lot of things happening, but that really sums up how the game plays in a nutshell. It's not a full rules definition, but fundamentally that's how the game plays. I have no idea how long that took.
Longer than I expected.
Longer than I expected as well.
It gives you an insight as to how the game plays.
It does. Kirsty, goods.
So, the good. Oh, this game. It's gorgeous. It really is a gorgeous game. Everything is so well thought out. The components, excellent quality. Just the size of the game. It's an enormous...
It's massive.
The table we have here is the same size as the double bed. It takes up the width of the entire table when we play at the other side. You can't fit player boards on as well unless you've got it lengthways. The components
you need to be willing to help each other moving things around.
Yeah, the components are really well, really, they make logical sense. If it's cats, they're cats. If you need donkeys, they're donkeys. The quality is really high. What's interesting as well, and there's one thing that I've only just thought out, there is literally no scoreboard on here.
No.
You just add up everything at the end.
There's a score pad in the box.
But they haven't wasted any space by adding a score track on.
Yeah, and actually a score track would add another. It might only be a couple of inches, but it would really start to prohibit the kind of table you can play the game on.
Another thing I love about it is it feels. Say this from someone who's never had anything to do with the coffee trade. It feels quite realistic. The respect that the workers who are out on the different plantations are gaining coffee for everyone. It doesn't matter who's paying them. The money's coming in and they will bring the coffee in. Yeah. And so whoever's willing to pay the most who gets the coffee. There's a real feel about that. There's the reality that the coffee that you're going to have left that you're not going to do, you're going to sell to the smaller bars. There's so many little things that add up in this game. You're always kept occupied. There's always something to look at or think, and it's fascinating. I really, really enjoy this game, and I remember the first time I got it out, and I was like,
and then put it
wow,
back.
and it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And actually, we played it the first time before we went to Essen.
Yeah, we did.
And I think I spent most of the flight chatting about it. It's one of those that got straight into my head. There's so many different things you can do. There's so many different ways you can do it. My first game, I was like, oh, right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost all the tracks. It's not as simple as that.
No.
Every time I try to do that, and you end up not even considering about the Arabica track. It's just
something is there, but don't worry about it. Let it look after itself.
The artwork in this game is beautiful. I love the choices of colours that they've done, and obviously for those who are colourblind, the symbology is very clear for the different shapes and the different types. Throughout everywhere it's clear on the different choices, but the colours are, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, heading towards colourblind friendly. They're not your stereotypical primary colours.
No, they're not.
Which I think helps the tones really, assist. Even the player colours are different to your standard green, red, yellow, blue.
Yeah.
Everything feels like it's been so well thought out in this game that they've really gone to above and beyond to pay that little bit more attention, it feels, to deliver a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And, you know, when it first came, it was so heavy. It was like, oh my god.
Yeah, the box. It's like,
yeah,
the box weighs a ton. It's a really heavy box.
But you've got such good quality components. The metal of the coins, you know, the every like little resin. Actual, you know, these could have just easily been cubes. They're actual little coffee beans. All the pieces are wood. They're you know, they're painted. They're cute. They're everything. I don't know. I just think like Capstone Games have knocked it out the park when it comes to production of games at the moment, and I think that this is a brilliant example of it. Really do. And I think I
couldn't agree more.
You know, the designers of the game have thought so well on making you feel like I need to do that, I need to do that, I need to do that. What's the best way of me most effectively using my moves?
Yeah.
And it's so. And the other thing as well, from being a start player through to someone teaching the game, through to explaining the game, this player board is fantastic. It lists. You start from left. You follow across to the right. As long as you follow that track, you can't go wrong. I think it's brilliant. I really do. Like, I'm going to struggle with the next 2 parts of this video.
It's a good job, Andrew. Okay,
So for me, that's my good. Sorry, over to you.
So I'm going to start with this. A rule book. I don't know if André Spil and Rolf Sagel actually wrote the rule book. I mean, they will have written the rule book, but it will be well edited, and it has been superbly well edited. However, the first time you pick this up, it's a lot of information to process, and you feel like, actually, how hard is this going to be to play? Because there's so many rules, and there's a lot going on. You've got like loads of things to sort of keep track of during the game. And you're looking at it, and there's so many pieces and so many components, and you look at, like, not really funny. I don't know if you can see. You look at that little diagram at the top. It's like, oh my god, what's going on?
I feel almost you just need to get it out and play.
Yeah.
It's got very much that vibe of learn as you go.
After you've played this game,
yeah,
this is almost unnecessary after the first play of the game. And you can go a month or so without playing it again, and you'll pick it up pretty quickly, because, as Kirsty's mentioned, these player boards just structure the game. Each round is so clearly structured on these player boards, it's really hard to get it badly wrong.
Yeah.
There'll be times when you do make mistakes. That's kind of fine as well.
Yeah. You learn through mistakes.
You do. I describe this as a game, and for a heavy game as well. And by heavy, because we'll have a bit of a debate about what heavy means. But when I say a heavy game, I mean every decision matters. That to me is a heavy game. Not necessarily that decisions are hard to make, although they should be hard to make, but actually that everyone matters. And actually, sometimes you'll end up with 2 or 3 decisions to make, and they're all equally valid.
Yeah.
And you can struggle with that.
Yeah.
That to me is a heavy game.
Okay.
The beautiful thing about this is, after you've learnt it once, the rules just get completely out of your way.
Yeah, they do.
You can just play the game and make the decisions. You're not going, oh, pass me the book because I just need to look up this fiddly rule just to see if I can do what I want to do.
No.
Like, it's so streamlined for a game with so much going on.
Yeah.
There's a huge congratulations for putting this game out. Yeah. It feels solidly play tested, really well written, well designed, and the flow of the game is just spot on. I find it really hard to criticise that element of this game, because it just works well. I love this shared board in the centre of the board.
Yeah.
You can, and I have. You can play the game without upgrading any plantations, and just riding on the coattails of what other players are doing.
Yeah.
And normally, in that kind of, when you're playing in that kind of style, you might grab one of the majorities, which is kind of worth 16 points if you've got the majority 8 at second place. And I think descend. But you could probably grab the majority in one to keep you in business. But you can let other people upgrade the plantations, and you just go and grab, if you're the first person, you're probably grabbing more coffee than anyone else.
Yep.
Also, putting these trading houses out can give you a trickle income every turn, every round. And actually,
even if you don't have any workers there, by putting, as you said, the trade house out, it still gives you a coffee each time.
And that's what makes, I love this shared board. I love the principle of it, which is, you're fine. You're going to score majority at the end. But the big fundamental of these areas through the game is producing coffee. And actually, they don't mind who they're producing for. As long as someone's buying off them, they're happy. So actually, just getting the traders out is enough. And you can let other people build up the plantations and the co-ops while you just sit back and go, you know what, I'm going to focus on something else on my player board. Let you do that, and I'm just going to come in and nab some coffee later. And it upsets people.
It does.
It really winds people up. But it's perfectly valid, and it's a perfectly legit strategy.
And you beat Matt last time by doing that.
I did.
Yeah. Just by literally just going, I'm just going to pop another little build in there and pip him to the post.
Yeah. So at the end of the game, you're just like, I'm going to get a hospital house worth 2 points, so I'll have that area. It's great, and it's a great way of doing the game, and you've always got something to do, whether it's selling coffee over here, which is quite cheap. It's like up to 6 coffee beans to sell there, but starts at 1, 2 or 3, and there's a little there's rewards available each place. Fulfilling contracts, always something to do with your actions here, even if it's just, if I'm not putting buildings out, I'm probably just accumulating a bit of cash or putting my Sumatra, like my civet cats out in Sumatra to get my wild coffee beans at the end of the round.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter how you're doing it, but you can work it through, or figuring out ways to boost an Arabica track, because actually when you get to certain milestones, so when you get to this first milestone here, when you've moved your Arabica track up 2 spaces on all 5 columns, you get another one of these traders and contractors, which really helps, especially going into the final round, because you probably want 5, because you probably want to visit most of the areas, maybe not all, but you probably want to get out to most of the areas.
You could actually do that then.
You could. And like I say, I think the biggest thing for me, people will look at this game and go, what the hell, there's so much going on, it's intimidating, it's scary, there's so many pieces, so many bits. It never plays like there's an overwhelming amount of components on the table. And that feels crazy, even just looking at it now with a 2-player setup.
Yeah.
When you've got 5 players, you're fighting for like dominance in different areas, but actually, and there'll be more stuff on the board, never feels like there's too many components, never feels like it's too busy or too encumbering. There's always places to pick up points. Even towards that very last round, there's still places you can scavenge points from in the last couple of moves that will get you somewhere. Yeah. And early decisions can impact your late game as well, which I really like. So for me, there's a lot of good. You've mentioned the artwork, the clear iconography, the graphic design, which often graphic designers are like trumped by the artists, like the artist is, but the graphic design on this is just superb. Like it's so clearly laid out. Fantastic. So there's a lot to like about this game. I've got a huge amount of good for this game, but we do have to move on to the bad. Kirsty.
Dum, dum, dum. Okay, so I have a bad, and it might just be the way that I'm playing, or I just don't understand how it sits in the game. And I think Phil will know exactly what I'm talking about. And this is is it the wildlife track?
Yeah.
I cannot, for the life of me, we've played several times over. The highest I've ever got is 4 points on it.
I've got 8 once.
Yeah, and it's one of those that you are pushing and you're striving to get it, but unless you get it up to 25, it's so hard to make it, worthwhile thing to do.
It's actually just called the counter track, which I think tells you a little bit about.
Okay. I feel like the game can exist without this and still be a fantastic game. It's not like you're getting bonuses from it. It's just a little bit of end game scoring, but at the same time, it takes so long to get to just 4 coffee cups. You can do that using other more effective ways of your moves.
Yeah.
So there is a rule that if anything is of the same colour, it must stack rather than lead. So you can see on my board here, I've got lilac, pink, brown, green and purple. If you look at Phil's, he's got brown, wild, purple stacked. Because unless you've got 2
different, when you've got when I get a 3rd token that's different, I can then move both 2 up to here.
Yes.
And they kind of lock in at that point. I agree.
I don't. It's not. I don't see how it sits in the game. I can see how it's fair trade and wildlife and animals, and I can see that there are benefits to strive for at the top of each track here, because this is a wild marking the scratch, and then you've got the different specific type of animal in the colours, and these are placed at random, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be
they are.
The place at random, but it's wild and animal.
Yeah.
You get little bean counters here.
Yeah.
And you also get some animal counters over there as well. So there's different places to grab them from, but the actual commitment to grab them to get a lot of points feels like you're completely diverting from the rest of the game just to get those points.
And I wonder. I mean, I've never tried it and just only focused on that. Because I've always struggled to get right up to the top, and I tend to spread, as you can see, if you look at the purple, this is very reminiscent of the way I play.
Spread out.
I will go maximum 2. I will tend not to hit the third one, and just try and spread, around.
One of the frequent cries during this game is, how do I get a second donkey without putting 2 cubes here? Because that is such an expensive move.
Yeah, it does feel it.
But I'm all right with that, because the value of having a 3 plantation from a point of view of the area majority is actually quite good. It's like it's easily a swaying. It's a winning move in a particular area. So making it expensive is fine, but it really, when you're putting 2 cubes there to get 1 donkey, it burns.
You're putting 2 cubes there, and you're playing 2 coins, which at that point you don't know what you're going to need your money around here. And it feels like, well, actually, if you've only got, say, 4 coins, and you spent 2 to get a donkey to allow yourself to put a 3 out, it's kind of like, well, okay, I've got my donkey, I've spent 2 coins, I've got 2 coins left now for my entire trader and contractor phase. And it's like, oh. But, yeah, so the only bad I can feel about this game is the wildlife track. And it might be that I'm completely misunderstanding it. So...
Yeah, if anyone's used it well, please get in touch. If anyone's
used it, Capstone Games, anyone wants to give me a little insight on how this works to clear it up for me, please comment below and explain it, because for some reason I just think it's...
Not just Kirsty, any of the players who've played it have struggled with it.
It doesn't... It's not that it doesn't bode with the game, it's not that it doesn't match with the game and the theme, because obviously wildlife and the nature, it goes with it because obviously you're trying to look after, the fair trade and the wildlife in the surrounding areas. I understand that. I don't understand necessarily not the point of it, but why it takes you so long to gain a point from it.
Yeah, even why this having to stack is a thing. Like, anyway,
that's my bad for this game, and to be honest, I've really struggled to get to that.
So my bad.
An idea of where my head is at with this game.
My bad, and I was like spinning plates of whether this is a bad or an ugly. Like, a bad for me is a reason to potentially not buy the game, and an ugly is like just something fiddly, a niggle that doesn't quite work. From a bad within this game, there is, I think, for me, the piggyback action is my bad, and it feels. And I feel like it's been done for the purposes of balance, but it feels almost a little bit lazy. Ooh, I said it out loud.
Okay.
And I love this game. I don't understand why the game... Well, I do. Why the game needed a piggyback action. So, when you put a worker out, someone can piggyback it, and that's fine. It costs the first person money, it costs the second person nothing. If you piggyback in a building, it costs you a coffee. It's fine. And the reason I don't like it, and it really galls me, is the only reason I think it's there is to make sure the game length doesn't extend excessively. Because otherwise it'd be like, I put a worker out, okay, you put 1 worker out.
But actually I quite like the fact that they've kept it concise in that respect.
I'm not disagreeing, but I just... The piggyback action feels like it doesn't fit with the theme. It doesn't... It's the one bit of the rules that feels clunky and clumsy and doesn't immediately explain itself as you're playing.
Okay.
And for that's why it's a bad for me. Okay. And like I say, it's a borderline bad or an ugly, because actually it keeps the length of the game down. Because actually you might have got 5 of these workers and they will go in about 10 minutes, 15
Yeah,
minutes.
they will, yeah.
They'll go really quickly because you'll go,
Piggyback.
crap, I need to be there. Right, I'm going to follow, I'm going to follow, I'm going to piggyback. I'm going to play mine out. And actually how you play these workers out is really important in the game. So I get why it's there. I just feel like it doesn't fit the game.
Or maybe you have like one down here that's a piggyback if someone doesn't have any money, rather than it being every single move is a piggyback.
Yeah.
That sort of vibe. So the last player that's really struggling
Can jump on
in the
board.
round can do it. I could get it then, but actually you have to vary the board depending on the number of players, so maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. I feel like it could have been done differently. Like, I don't know.
I don't know how to fix it though.
No, I know, and I feel like you could auction each area off. So it's like, okay, I'm willing to pay 3 coins to come here. Kirsty's willing to pay 2 coins, so I go first place, Kirsty goes second place.
Okay.
I don't know.
But
Auction,
you said yourself, more coins are really hard to come by.
they are hard to come by, but actually, that's what you're doing. You're buying coffee here.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone should be paying for the coffee rather than the person at the front pays. No one else pays.
But they gain the
they get a bonus
the warehouse
coffee.
hook.
They get a bonus coffee and the warehouse hook. They get something for their cash. But I feel like everyone should be paying, and I feel like that auction is probably from a market perspective exactly how it works in real life. That the coffee is like brought in, and people go, oh, the most, someone's willing to pay X for a ton of coffee, and they pay X for a ton of coffee. Someone else is then worth next ton, so on and so forth. But overall, that's my bad. And I have one bad for this game, and it's that piggyback action.
Okay, so. Moving on to the ugly.
Yeah.
Little haystack rolls by because I don't really know if I've got one, to be honest.
Well, I'm going to piggyback Kirsty's ugly on this board. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But it's only an ugly. It's like you play the game and ignore this track. Fine, that's not really a problem, I don't think. And whereas my bad was something that really does. It's not. This is just, well, you play the game anyway and just carry
got
on.
Tokens then.
Yeah. So that's one of my uglies.
Ooh, multiple.
And it's well, whether it's multiple or not, I don't know. My other ugly is the milestone cards are the only thing I have to go and refer to the rulebook for.
Okay, yeah.
And not often, not all the time, but there are times when I have to go and refer to the rulebook. Like most of them I can see from here, and actually I'm absolutely fine with. The first one is the first person to complete 6 contracts. The next one is the first person to have, it looks like 10 coffee on 2 tracks.
Yeah.
Which, that's not easy.
No, it's not.
The other one, I'm not sure what that is. That looks like plantations and flags, just not sure. And that...
Yeah.
Like, given the quality, and it's a proper, just a tiny niggle, because given the quality of the rest of the graphic design in this game, I feel like I shouldn't have to refer to the rulebook ever for anything anymore, and that's a shame. And it's just a shame. It's not a bad thing. It's just it's an ugly. It's a niggle that I can go to the book and I can look at that one because actually all the milestones
they all are
documented
actually
on one page because there aren't that many of them.
So what does that one mean?
And that one means. Add all 11 plantations. So clear all these plantations.
So it's this little symbol here.
Off your board. Yeah, that's a symbol.
But it doesn't mean... It doesn't show them moving or anything. It's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. They're my 2 uglies. This little track and the milestones and the iconography, because it only stands out because of the high quality of the rest of the graphic design.
Yeah.
Because everything else is pretty much translatable.
It's so easy to follow, as we've said.
Even this breed donkey action where you've got there's a plantation filmed in, and it shows you putting the donkey on that gap between a plantation you've already got and a plantation you haven't got at the next level.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. The graphic design, the artwork is so good in this game that just the fact I have to refer to the rulebook makes it a bit of a niggle and a bit of an ugly.
And so one thing that we haven't mentioned, it's not an ugly, it's not a bad, but in a 2-player you have a third dummy player and you don't even notice it. We haven't got it out here because we just wanted to show an example of how the game's played. But in a 2-player game there is a dummy player and it works like just it doesn't feel like whether it's the way we play, we're not jeopardising each other's play.
No.
You know, he goes out, he
follows a sequence.
Yeah, he does.
And that sequence works perfectly well. And, you know...
It doesn't too much affect people's game, but you know he's there. And I think that in a 2-player game, a dummy player can be a make or break. Like in Furnace, it was vile. It was based on the roll of a dice and there's literally no control. Whereas at least in Coffee Traders, it's thought out, there's a procedural process and you know what's going to happen each time.
That's a really important thing. You can plan for it.
Yeah. And that, heads up, like, you know, that's a really good one. Yeah. And, you know, it's something I should have mentioned in my good, but actually it's something that's only just come to mind. Yeah,
and actually, especially when we play games 2 players, and we play quite a lot of games 2 players, having a good... Like Merv does a decent job as well. Like having that ability to have basically someone who fills spaces up and occupies spaces. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't produce enough coffee off the board. So it works quite nicely. I think, from my perspective, Coffee Traders is an absolutely superb game. Yeah. There's minimal things that I struggle with. Yeah. It is a game where you can pick a strategy and play that strategy through. Yep. Other players can interfere with that strategy because you've got this wonderful shared board at the heart of it all. But you can start to strategize, you can make tactical adjustments during the play of the game, and you're chasing for points. You're chasing to be the first to certain locations and the first to certain areas on the board that give you the maximum points. But you are the master of your own destiny. You are making the decisions that affect your game. And yes, other players can get there first. And honestly, this game, other players can really get under your skin at this game. But you'll never criticise them for it. No. Because you'll do the same to them then at the very next move. And it won't be you did it to me, so I'm going to do it to you. No, it'll be, actually, that's my best move. And I'm going to take it because it's the right thing for me to do. And you'll look around the table and go, and people will go, yeah, and you're going to do that. It's fine.
It's all part of the gameplay.
It is a wonderful example of how to maximise player interaction whilst also allowing players to try and fulfil a strategy rather than making it like multiplayer solitaire, which, spoiler alert for Ark Nova, for those of you who have not watched the Ark Nova video yet, Ark Nova is very much multiplayer solitaire.
Yeah, it is.
This game shows you how to create interaction in a meaningful way that actually is not completely vile.
And you know what? Another Capstone Games?
Another Capstone Games.
We've said it several times. Capstone Games have really smashed it out of the park the last year or so.
I mean...
We're in 2022 now. You know...
In 2021, their releases in 2021 made up the vast majority of our top 5 games. Yep. We had this game, Coffee Traders was in there. We also had... forgotten now.
Messina.
Messina's a delicious game, so it wasn't Messina.
Imperial
Steam, which was genuinely superb. Yeah. Ark Nova, if we'd have got a copy in 2021, might have been up there as well. Maybe. With the one exception, but we'll leave that out for now. You'll find our review of that other game. But actually, Capstone Games, for the production of their heavier games. It's hard to not pick up a Capstone game at the moment.
It's really important that you're not put off by the looks like complexity of this game, because there are far simpler games that I find far more complicated than this. I find this a really simple game to play, and it's basically because everything is laid out in front of you, like we said.
Yeah,
honestly, that makes a killer difference for a player's enjoyment of a game. So if you're designing a game and you can make it straightforward for people to follow, don't copy the game, that's illegal. But it really does make a difference. It makes it so much easier.
Learn from this.
Learn from this. I have so much enjoyment of this game. People go, oh my god, it's such a heavy game, it's so complicated. I don't find it heavy, whether it's just the way my mind works or whether it's because of this wonderful player board and the ease of which you just follow in a process. But it doesn't feel like you're following a process because you're making decisions.
And I think actually, we've already mentioned it, but the difference in how both of us look at heavy. You look at heavy from a how easy is the game to actually mechanically play. Are the rules simple, clear, or are the rules muddy and getting in the way? Yeah. So for you, this game is actually the rules are really straightforward. I do this. fine.
The
For
options
me,
are available.
a heavy is a game that provides many decision points, and those decision points are all hard and meaningful decisions to make.
Whereas I don't find them hard when there's decision points to do. I just go along and I enjoy the game. And if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. But I've had a fantastic time playing it. And I can say that every single time I've played this game, I've enjoyed it. It's felt like 5 minutes has gone by. It doesn't drain on time. I can't pick a fault with this game in terms of the way it plays, how long it plays. I just think it's fantastic.
So quick summary, I think, from both of us. For me, this is like a £70 game. So it's expensive.
Yeah.
So be aware of what you're buying. But if you like a game that gives you rich decision points, that are difficult and challenging decisions every time you get to them, and you have to think hard about them, and but you're allowed to follow a strategy and make little adjustments as you go, this is a great game for you.
Very much so.
If, however, you want something where there's a handful of decisions that still might be meaningful, but not too many of them, this game might not be for you.
Perhaps something more square and circle, build that lighter.
Yeah, and more straightforward. Another square and circle, another area majority game, but done in a slightly different way, slightly less intense decision making as in this game. But honestly, if you like that kind of heavyweight game where the heavyweight comes from decisions, not rules, Coffee Traders is a great choice. And it's a great spend of 70 quid because you're going to have hours of fun with this game.
Definitely. Do you agree with what we said? What's your experiences been with Coffee Traders? We'd be very interested to hear from you. So feel free to pop it in the comments below. And if you know anything about this track, put it below. It's driving me crazy.
Okay, and thank you for your time today. If you've enjoyed this video, you found it useful, please just like and subscribe. Helps us out no end, keeps us motivated, keeps us going.
Don't forget, we're also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Just search Ludus Vulpes.
Thanks for your time today.
Thanks everyone. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.